Not another citizen of Josephine could have fit within the Sicilian church later that afternoon. The church so overburdened with the survivors of the latest Benzar attack that many were forced to stand along the back wall of the sacred place. Some had come to simply pray to the divine goddess herself. Some had come to beg for relief from the Benzars, while others had come to mourn for those who had been destroyed or even transformed into Benzars themselves during the most recent assault. Desperately needing hope and faith in something, the spirit of Sisla filled most everyone within the hurting city, and the overwhelming attendance certainly wasn't surprising. The church was still a grand structure, having survived the vicious assault 3 nights before, and was perhaps one of the most outstanding shrines dedicated to Sisla throughout all of America. Each corner contained a heavy golden brazier, wafting soft reddish incense into the air, while the back of the building, where most of the actual sermons took place, stood before massive slabs of red granite, magically altered to allow the colors of the rainbow to appear whenever the rays of the setting sun struck the backside of the wall. On sunny afternoons like today, the church interior was a splendid display of light and color, of rounded shapes and symmetry, of love and contentment, of everything that made one feel good to be alive, and the flock attending the service immersed itself within the splendor and euphoria of the mystical place.
So Kasan took the Life Star from Sisla and drugged the Deliverer, preventing Sisla from the great sacrifice as well. Making haste, Kasan then journeyed here to the beautiful lands of Parappa, drawing forth the thousands of corrupted Hellions that sought the destruction of the Life Star and the human race which created it.
The weary citizens thus listened eagerly to the healer priest in the pulpit, hanging on every word of his wisdom, the rainbow behind him appearing to be a magical blessing from beyond. The priest was dressed in flowing white robes, splashed with color that crossed the chest of his holy attire. 30-ish and handsome, the soft and comforting voice of the priest further enhanced his image of the perfect holy man, and nearly all listening to him took heart and solace in his powerful, reassuring words. And even though they could have fled, Kasan and her followers knew that the desperate struggle to finally end the Age of Damnation, to put to end 1,000 years of war with the corrupts, required in part the destruction of the Su-Priest army surrounding them. So Kasan joined hands, and with the power of the Life Star performed the rites of Kasan, sacrificing herself in order to save our world. And a great Delma graced the land, forever marking the location of Kasan's altruistic deed.
So Kasan joined hands, and with the power of the Life Star, performed the rites of Kasan, sacrificing herself in order to save our world.
I am Senyers, a healer priest of the Sicilian Church, and I'd always found great inspiration with the story of Kasan and her sacrifice to help end the Age of Damnation. And with the Benzar attacks growing worse and worse, I thought it the perfect legend to focus upon.
"Forgive me, Senyers," shouted an elderly woman from the pews below, appearing to have suffered much within the last few weeks. "You speak of sacrifice, yet Sisla continues to ignore us. How much longer must we wait?" "As long as necessary, of course," Senyers quickly replied. his honest and heartfelt answer soothing the congregation's rumbling. The healer priest truly knew and understood the concerns of his people, and tried to lessen their grief and discomfort with further words of wisdom and advice. I swear to you, the shard of life will be returned to the church, and the city will be made safe from the Benzars again. You must believe this. Until then, we must all continue our struggle and endure the sacrifices asked of us. Remember, Sisla lives in each one of us, but only if we continue to open our hearts and do what is best for the greater glory of everyone within Josephine. Excellent words, my son, shouted Gepenor, standing near the back doors of the church and unnoticed until now. Everyone turned to gaze upon the Supreme Healer Priest, who normally didn't appear at such religious gatherings. The large man slowly strolled through the middle aisle and toward Seniors, again nearly waddling from his rotund size. Seniors was surprised to see his superior approach, and immediately backed away so Gepenor could climb into the pulpit, the same place Nor had surrendered the shard to the Benzars just 3 nights before, to address the weary townsfolk. Senior speaks the truth. Already, Lord Robert has chosen a young and powerful wizard to lead a party of adventurers on a quest to recover the shard and forever destroy the Benzars. Our terrible suffering is nearly at an end. A wave of instant relief rolled over the townspeople, many of them whispering their sudden glee to close family and friends. As if Nor had just put a spell upon the people, all of them appeared much more relieved and content.
Yes, Seniors, you continue to provide faith and confidence, even when most others would have given up. You're the best healer priest I have, probably the best in all Parappa, and that's why I need you.
Now, I must speak with Seniors, so I hereby officially end this gathering. Go back to your homes and pray to Sisla that these heroes return the shard as soon as they possibly can. Although a few people were disheartened by the sudden ending of the service, Gepenor was certainly not a figure to be argued with, and so the church emptied quickly. As the masses silently filed out through the large doors at the other end of the church, Seniors and Gepenor slowly turned and descended from the obsidian pulpit. Then my words were acceptable, Supreme One? Asked Seniors as they reached the floor of the church. As always, Seniors, you're a credit to the calling. Ignoring the compliment, however, Seniors instead queried his religious supervisor, needing to know more about Gepenor's promising announcement. What is this about an adventuring party? Has the shard been found? Follow me, Nor replied with a grin. The Supreme Healer Priest quickly led Seniors to a corner of the church near a burning brazier, where upon the wall stood a neatly carved map of the surrounding lands. There, the country of Parappa dominated the center of the Merle, with the various neighboring city-states lying about her borders. To the south and east was the Evilroot Forest, neatly separated by the Wilex River. Nor looked at the map, and then turned back to his younger religious counterpart. Let us perform a prayer together. Look to the map, and concentrate upon the location of the shard.
Our homeland, country of Parappa, site of Sisla's final victories over the corrupts, mostly prairie, with protective mountains to the north and west, dreaded Evilroot to the southeast, separated by the majestic Wilex River.
Seniors turned to his superior with some surprise, not prepared for what he knew would be an extremely difficult spell. Still, the young priest had little choice and quickly prepared himself, closing his eyes and drawing in a deep breath. Although not actually reborn, like all dedicated healer priests, Senyurs possessed a magical talisman of lifestone that focused and converted his own sense of internal will and faith into physical power, enabling him to utilize Magicka almost as effectively as any true wizard of the world. So Senyurs and Gepenor grasped the pendants hung from around their necks and prepared themselves for the magical summoning.
We healer priests of the world are not reborn, so we cannot draw and shape Magicka through our minds directly. Rather, we rely upon the power locked deep within the life stone. Sacred relics, quite rare within America, and strong enough to amplify our love and respect for the world into physical power. Still, I wasn't sure if I could do it.
To invoke the Magicka, Senyurs began to think about how much he wanted to help the people of Josephine, and his mind cleared of everything else, allowing him to focus only upon his love for the city and the guidance and protection of the souls who dwelled within. Further concentration finally opened the mental channel between the talisman and his mind, and suddenly Senyurs felt the Magicka raging through his consciousness, his to direct and control. The healer priest also sensed the rush of further Magicka from his spiritual master beside him, providing further reassurance that he could actually help perform this difficult spell. Senyurs then allowed his passions to take over, his need to be a healer priest, his anger toward those responsible for the Benzars, his personal quest to leave the world a better place than how he found it. These honest, heartfelt convictions all combined to further draw living Magicka from the talisman, providing the priest with just enough energy to succeed. Moments later, a tiny light began to shine upon the map, and Senyurs opened his eyes, sensing that his spell with Gepenor was complete. "The shard! It is an evil root," whispered Senyurs, stunned with the revelation. "That's where it was taken, to no one's surprise, I'm sure," Gepenor softly responded. "My son, we must quickly recover our sacred relic, and I've chosen you above all others to help do it." Sudden dread filled the core of Senyurs, a consuming fear that widened his eyes and rocked his very spiritual foundations. Gepenor grinned, a rare event, and explained the situation. "I know what you're thinking, and of course it will be difficult," he began, his words surprisingly soft and comforting. "But you'll be going with a group of heroes, led by a talented wizard named Redfern. So you want me to help this party? To become an adventurer?"
As I knew it was. I was testing the faith of Senyurs, making sure he was ready. It was mostly his power that revealed the shard, not mine. Senyurs was a brave and convicted healer priest. I knew he would not let his people down.
"Time's quickly running out for us, Senyurs. Do you recognize the location of our relic within Evilroot?" Senyurs turned again and spotted the magical light, fading with the demise of the spell. The young priest needed only a moment of thought, however, before he realized the true location of the lost object. The Onyx Ruins. "Sandris deserves her death 100 times over," Gepenor spat, watching the magical light die away. "You must seek the gateway to the realm of nightmares." A moment of utter numbness passed for Senyurs, horrified by the destination of the mission. The healer priest knew well the legends concerning the dreaded ruins. created during the Age of Damnation to link Merrigan reality with the universe of the Hellions, vile alien creatures of intense evil and destruction. The Hellions had joined the Corrupts near the end of the 1,000-year Age of Damnation, but were ultimately defeated by Sisla and the Onyx Seal in place to never allow the Hellions access to Meriga again. Although the location was then magically buried under an entire mountain of soil, Sandra secretly excavated the site several years earlier to further her own selfish ambitions. This was why Gepinor had led the people of Josephine in revolt against Sanders, Senyers knew, leading to her public execution.
Any place with an evil root is terrible. I dread journeying to such a place. Oh, Sisla, is that where... Yes, the ruins, the Onyx ruins, recently found, excavated. I'm doomed if I go there.
Wrestling with his fear and lack of confidence, Senyers barely controlled his trembling as he turned away from the Supreme Healer Priest. You ask the impossible, Supreme One. Nothing is impossible, my son, replied the religious leader, not surprised by the comment. Your faith and courage rivals even mine, and someday you may very well become the Supreme One of the entire Sislan Church yourself. Welcome this opportunity to serve your people and believe that it can be done. Having turned away from the map, Senyers continued to stare blankly ahead. Though he noticed someone sitting in the far corner of the beautiful temple, he continued to concentrate on the terrible journey ahead. Moments passed before the young priest turned back to his leader and slowly nodded, accepting his fate with dignity and honor. For the sake of Josephine, as well as the church, I will do this. You're an inspiration to us all, Nor stated, patting Senyers upon the back. Do whatever you have to, but bring the shard back to us. I understand. Sisla will show me the way. I'm sure she will, my son. I'm sure she will. Come. The Supreme Healer Priest placed his wide, reassuring arm around the younger holy man, then turned him around and silently escorted the new adventurer out of the temple.
No one can survive the terrors of Evil Root, yet the shard must be recovered, or everyone within Josephine will surely perish. I have a duty to these people, to the church, to Sisla herself.
Watching the two holy figures depart was Throm, still resting in the corner of the religious stronghold, and now vaguely aware of Robert's plan to send Redfern to the Evil Root Forest. Having somewhat overheard the conversation between Senyers and Gepinor, the estranged farmer clenched his fists in further anger, convinced that the church was also conspiring with Robert to inflict more death upon the defenseless citizens of Josephine. Throm had long since abandoned faith in Sisla, trust in Lord Robert, even hope in his fellow man. A wretched soul with little to live for, the ragged but muscular man was utterly convinced he had much to kill for, and slipped out of the temple with continued hatred burning in his heart.
There they go, the cursed priests. Damn hypocrites, why am I the only one who sees this? No matter, they'll soon get what's coming to them. But first, I must do something about Redfern.
Negotiating his way through the heart of the city, Throm eventually reached the rough and seedy back streets, rudely pushing past his fellow townsmen as the unsympathetic thug he had become. Terrible memories ran through the crazed man's head, how he had lost his entire family to the Benzars during one of the first assaults, how the government had promised, and failed, to destroy the monsters, and how the truth was finally leaked that Redfern was the first guard of Sandris come back to exact revenge for her fiery execution. And now even the church was conspiring to send an expedition to Evilroot, Throm realized, another excuse for delay and indecision, and he knew exactly what had to be done.
Damn Redfern! News was already all over town about how he was going to lead some heroes to recover the shard. What filthy lies! I long since realized Robert was just helping the Fenzars, and I knew he was just letting Redfern escape. It's up to me to prevent that.
Throm was a tall man, strong and well-built from years of toiling in the local fields of the country, one of many who farmed and picked the various foods for the local population. Once healthy and quite happy, he had lost everything now except his life, and appeared almost as a ghost, an empty shell of a man with more hatred than 10 men could normally carry. The harvester slept as little as possible, suffering from acute paranoia, his eyes dark recesses within a sea of sunburn and wrinkles, and his slight limp betrayed a permanent injury suffered the night his family had been slain by the first Benzars. Throm had become a metaphor for pain, a pathetic example of all those who had given up hope, someone with little reason to continue his miserable existence. Yet Throm did see a purpose for his survival, and he had never felt more determined to fulfill that purpose as he did when he finally reached the burned-out frame of his long-forgotten home, about to meet in secret with like-minded friends. Reaching a section of the city that had never been rebuilt after the attack that devastated his life, Throm made sure he wasn't being followed before lifting a large, thin slab of stone on the floor to reveal a secret passage leading down into what was once the cellar of the dwelling. The tormented farmer then stepped down the worn and scorched stone steps, entering the dreary cellar moments later. The room was barely 10 feet to a side, rank and stuffy and full of debris, with only one smoldering torch to provide light for the others there awaiting Throm. Inspecting them one by one to ensure that all had come, Throm simply nodded to his disreputable friends before seating himself at the broken table in the middle of the room, the center of attention for the other 5. "Robert thinks the shard can be returned," hissed one of the men, a shorter human wearing a large hat to conceal a missing ear lost during one of the Benzar raids. "Who does he think he's kidding?" "He's just controlled by that old fat fool," replied Throm, his biting sarcasm tightly woven in his words. "The real source of our pain is the first guard, who now calls himself Redfern." "I remember Redfern, him and his corrupt father," condemned another of the men, bearing obvious burn wounds. "It all makes sense. Redfern was the first guard of Sandris, and is now exacting his revenge. He's the Angel of Death."
The Benzar attacks again shortly after Redfern left. It must be him. Redfern and Sandris were the best friends.
The first guard was never captured.
Redfern's responsible for all our misery. We must make Redfern pay for what he's done. Redfern should burn, as Sandris did.
"This monster's the cause of all our misery," replied Throm, his hatred so pronounced that it slurred his words. "And he somehow convinced the fools in the tower to try and rescue the shard. My bet he's here to see for himself how best to finally destroy the city." The others agreed, also convinced that Redfern was indeed the corrupt leader of the Benzars. Throm quickly continued the wicked conversation. "The question is, what are we going to do about it?" The look within the eyes of Throm was cold and vicious, as if he now sensed the smell of blood and was eager to consume it. The other men looked to one another, taking only a few moments to agree on what needed to be done. Throm then spoke again, murder quite obviously on his mind. "We must strike before he leaves the city, which is set for tomorrow at sunrise. I expect full participation."
Husband, I'm gone. Let me be. Remember when that bring us back? Father, action, shame us.
Attack the Benza, not those who will defeat them.
Father, atone for your acts. Let us rest in peace.
After a short nap, Redfern awoke within a guarded room of the best inn of the city, just in time to watch the sun set along the far western mountains through an open window by his bed. The pride and glee of having been chosen to lead a genuine adventuring party, especially on such an important mission as this, consumed the young wizard with a passion unmatched in his entire life. This was what he wanted most of all, a chance to be recognized, to be honored, and even glorified, to be a true hero of Mariga. This was an opportunity of a lifetime, Redfern knew, and the glow of impending fame and fortune on his face was just as vibrant as the setting sun beyond. Redfern's room was fit for a king, having been arranged and secured by Lord Robert himself just hours before. 2 grand beds lay within the chamber, each fitted with many colored sheets and possessing an elaborate canopy network of precious woods, fine fabrics, and rare flowers. Several marble statues stood proudly within the room, along with many other objects of interest and fancy, while beyond the doorway was a living area similarly decorated and arranged. Never before had Redfern experienced such importance and respect, and the hero trusted that he would never again be thought about or looked upon as just an ordinary citizen of Mariga. The wizard finally climbed out of bed and noticed Ellen lying upon the stone floor near his feet, curled up and appearing sad and lonely, even regretful. Watching Redfern with surprising curiosity but still unable to communicate, the bizarre woman could only sigh, her deep green eyes begging for an explanation to her current situation. Unable to help, Redfern could only smile as he made his way to a nearby basin, grooming himself as he prepared to leave. Ellen sat up as she watched Redfern reach for the door and depart minutes later, still confused about her whereabouts and condition, but no longer so afraid. The ghostly woman then lay back down, continuing to dwell upon the strange events that had led her to this alien world.
For all intents and purposes, I was a ghost. I didn't need to eat. I didn't need to rest. I couldn't feel anything. Sometimes I wondered if I was just going to blow away or something. The experiment had gone disastrously wrong. And for the first time in my life, I was beginning to regret my interest in science.
A series of soft taps came from the door 10 minutes later, and Ellen stood up to watch the wizard Vel enter, gently nodding to her in acknowledgement as he quietly shut the door behind himself. Vel slowly approached the foreigner and passed his staff through her, then his hand, and finally his entire body, convincing himself of the woman's truly unique character. The circle member then motioned for Ellen to sit down upon a nearby stone bench and sat down beside her. Vel smiled, then closed his eyes and drew a long breath in preparation of a very powerful spell. More moments passed and Vel's head began to jerk, his concentration intense. The tired wizard slowly reached out to Ellen and placed his shaking hand directly into the space occupied by her head. Ellen sensed a strong tingling sensation that quickly grew into a pressure upon her scalp, and then felt the pressure burst and die away. Moments later, Vel opened his eyes and queried the woman, his voice soft and reassuring. "Is that better?" A moment passed, and Ellen suddenly realized she had actually understood Vel's question. The old man had somehow done something to her, providing her the gift of intelligent communication, and Ellen was so shocked and relieved that her first few words were rushed and garbled. "Yes, yes, I understand, you understand. Oh, thank God," she cried, so very happy to communicate again. "What did you do to me?" "Majika, my dear. I'm a wizard of the inner circle, though I don't know for how long." Vel frowned, a deep, depressing look, a countenance of death and betrayal. But Ellen was just as jubilant and leaned forward to hug him, passing directly through the wizard before sitting back down again, rather embarrassed.
It was so weird. I felt this force move through me, a sharp pain in my mind, and then all of a sudden, I understood what the old man was saying to me, like I knew his language perfectly. It was my first encounter with this Majika stuff, and I was damn glad for it.
"I have no explanation for your current condition," Vel admitted, "nor can I do anything about it. My Majika implanted our language upon your mind, but it can do little to restore your body. You are a stranger, in what must be a strange land for you." The words were kind, and Ellen already trusted the gentleman completely. "You can say that again," she replied, about to confide in the wizard. "I never thought I'd end up in a place like this." "Which implies you came from some other place," Vel suggested, intrigued with the ghostly woman before him. "But I came to speak with Redfern. Is he here?" "You just missed him. I don't know where he went." "Tell me," Vel asked suspiciously, as if he knew something Ellen did not. "Did Redfern try to help you, like I just did?" "No, not really. Not that I know of." "That's strange. I would have thought a new wizard like Redfern would have been thrilled to help. So would you like to tell me where you're from?" "Another world. Perhaps another universe, I suppose. We were experimenting with the idea of parallel realities, that there's more to the universe that meets the eye, and I somehow wound up here." "Transported? How were you transported?" "It's hard to explain. Machine. Something you probably wouldn't know much about," Ellen replied, having noticed a distinct lack of technology within this foreign world.
Have you checked the coupling grid?
Of course. We're all set. Are you ready, Ellen? All buckled in?
I'll go.
The next dimension, here we come.
Vel suddenly grew concerned, almost angry, and appeared very serious as he asked his next question. A machine. Something technicky. Ellen was surprised he even knew the word, let alone that he had used it in the proper context. But she also detected a hint of disappointment from the old man, a feeling that she had somehow done something wrong. "What is it?" Ellen asked, confused by Vel's sudden change of heart. "Is something wrong?" "You must understand," came the cold, terse reply. "Technicky is evil, a curse of the land, and a slayer of basic living things. It is something expressly forbidden here. Where I come from, technology is quite needed," Ellen said, surprised by the strange revelation. It's who we are."
Technicky? Does he mean technology? Tools, machines, things to make life easier? Come to think of it, the technology level of this place does seem quite low. Matter of fact, I'd say these people are downright primitive.
Anything artificial is evil and expressly forbidden. Techniky was the cause of the Great Destruction. It became the instrument of the Gurax during the Age of Damnation and destroys living things from which it is created, snapped Vel, gaining his feet quickly to leave. I want nothing to do with those who use it. Wait, cried Ellen as Vel stepped toward the door. I've done nothing wrong. Please, help me. I've already given you too much, Vel shouted. All I can say is you need to return to wherever you came from as soon as possible, so you don't have the chance to corrupt our own beautiful world.
Our society arose from the Great Destruction, a time when the world eradicated all the gods of that era for their arrogance and abuse of techniky. The Gurax, too, during the Age of Damnation, used terrible techniky to kill us by the thousands. Techniky symbolizes everything that's gone wrong with our civilization. I get angry just thinking about it.
Ellen tried to stop the old man, but he was through the door and gone before she could do anything. Surprised by the encounter and needing to know more, Ellen tried to pass through the wooden door but felt strong resistance, as if she were pushing herself through wet cement. Unable to break through the wooden structure, the frustrated woman gave up and sat back down again in a corner of the posh chamber, disappointed that her chance to learn more about this new world was suddenly gone. Word of Redfern's adventuring party had raced through the city like wildfire, and the wizard began his recruitment early that night in a tavern of the city owned and operated by his Pesserden friend Sertan. The stone structure, like the vast majority of buildings within Josephine, had been hewed completely from the underlying bedrock, its walls, floor, and furniture all carved from one large section of stone and thus solid and secure. Bluish-white light emanated from various locations along the vertices between the walls and ceilings, creating a soft, magical glow that illuminated the tavern and bestowed a peaceful countenance upon the large crowd gathered there. The color of the surrounding granite pleasantly reflected this light, adding to the overall mood of the tavern as a quiet place to rest, eat, and forget.
After leaving Ellen at the hotel, I began my recruitment within a small tavern, operated by my friend Sertan, who of course had already agreed to go with me to Evil Root. But I had to act fast. Lord Robert had insisted that the adventure begin the very next morning.
It was here, tucked away in the back corner of the establishment, that Redfern began his recruitment, far enough away from the general crowd so that he could carry on meaningful conversations. Already, several potential heroes awaited his presence. After making himself comfortable, Redfern queried them one by one, spending over an hour to decide that none of them was suitable for such a noble adventure. Enjoying the recruitment process, however, the new wizard remained confident that he would soon find the right help, convinced that fate itself would soon provide the heart and talent he needed to recover the shard and save Josephine from the Benzars and their angel of death. After quietly turning down yet another potential prospect, the wizard was introduced to Ariana, a young Pesserden who seemed particularly interested in the adventure. Ariana appeared quite young, with soft, delicate features, gnarly brown hair, and beautiful blue eyes, although Redfern suspected that a hint of human blood also flowed through her veins. Ariana's skin was nearly perfect, a legacy of the Age of Damnation, when the race had been magically created to serve as soldiers against evil and corruption. Dressed in dark green skin-hide armor, and armed with the simple yet effective slasher, Ariana was quite strong and would have been an ideal candidate but for her age and presumed lack of experience. Still, the wizard decided to query the young woman anyway, in the hopes that she could convince him to let her participate in the adventure.
My next recruit. Wait a moment. She's still a child. A Pessardon, but with human qualities. Her armor is worn. She looks like she's been through quite a few battles. She's young, but who knows?
I may have looked young, but I was ready. Ready to serve the wizard and claim my destiny as an adventurer of Mariga. I am Ariana, a fierce warrior and defender from the Orient Society. And I was ready to do nearly anything to convince the wizard to let me help him in the return of the shard.
So, Ariana, where do you come from? Redfern began simply, the two seated opposite one another. The Orient Society, was her swift, innocent reply. Redfern knew of the city-state, which held the opinion that technology wasn't all bad, and hence had been eliminated from protection by the Inner Circle because of their blasphemous beliefs. The wizard also knew about one of their more infamous inventions, and quickly inquired, "So do you use... what's that thing called again?" "A bow, sir, as well as my slasher." Ordinarily, Redfern would have found Ariana's willingness to employ technology quite distasteful. But his very dear friend Sertan also carried a bow in his adventures, and the weapon was said to be easy to build as well as extremely useful. "How good are you with the weapon?" "Very good," replied Ariana, her enthusiasm so strong one could almost reach out and touch it. "I'm an expert shot. Do you want to see?"
The Orient Society, where Magicka is shunned in preference for things technicky. It serves them right for being cast out by the Inner Circle. Have they no respect for the code?
Redfern simply smiled and shook his head, finding the young Pessardon's desire for adventure entertaining as well as honorable. Still, the wizard knew the journey would be quite dangerous, and wasn't convinced that Ariana should be included. "So tell me, how long have you been an adventurer?" "Since my childhood, I guess," responded the young woman, rather surprised by the question. "Forgive me, but your childhood doesn't seem all that long ago." The comment made Ariana frown a bit, although it did little to lessen her eagerness and enthusiasm. "Don't worry, sir. I'm old enough to serve you and this land. I won't fail you." "Perhaps, Ariana, perhaps," Redfern responded, his voice growing serious. "But you see, this is an extremely important adventure, one that may well decide the fate of all Parappa, and so it requires great maturity and experience. Quite frankly, I doubt you possess either." "Sir," Ariana quickly replied, meeting his verbal challenge, "age isn't always an indicator of maturity, nor are the old the only ones with wisdom." Redfern was surprised by such words, especially since they came close to betrayal of the code. And as for experience, when you're born and bred within the society, you either learn to fight for your life or you lose it. The wizard considered the words of the defender, moved by Ariana's passion for adventure and ability to speak so eloquently. But Redfern had one final test for her. "Well, you're so young, but I'd like your spirit. Really though, tell me, this would be your first true adventure, wouldn't it?"
He's not being fair to me. I've never known my parents, forced to live on my own since I can barely remember. Each day has been a teaching of survival for me. Doesn't he know how terrible things are now within the society since the Circle denounced us?
Redfern looked deeply into her eyes that were now nervous and darting in several directions. Having been confronted, many moments passed before Ariana opened her mouth, about to utter some lie, Redfern assumed. "Yes, sir," came her simple and honest reply, the young Pessardon bowing her head in disappointment and rejection. Such pure honesty was rare among adventurers, and Redfern quickly recognized and seized the opportunity, having caught the Precedent's contagious enthusiasm and honor. Ariana, listen. Weapons and skill I can buy, not truth and loyalty. You have both. Meet us tomorrow at sunrise, near what's left of the main gate. The courageous adolescent looked shocked at first, but the reality of Redfern's words energized her soul and further fueled her heartfelt enthusiasm and desire to begin a promising adventuring career. The defender swept her long, unkempt brown hair back and returned Redfern's smile of pride and respect, standing in preparation to leave the reborn hero. Mighty wizard, thank you for this chance. Thank you so much. I swear, as Sisla be my witness, I won't fail you. Redfern noticed the sparkle of her bright blue eyes intensified tenfold, and stood to see the happy woman off, convinced she would do well on the adventure. Ariana then bowed and turned away, taking her youthful exuberance with her. Out of the crowd came a short, middle-aged man, who must have been anxiously awaiting Ariana's departure. He was a Girak, standing over 4 feet tall and covered from head to toe in speckled cloth that appeared rotting, although the material was almost new. The humanoid was quite offensive, possessing a demeanor of sheer arrogance, and his opening remark only subtracted from his already low charisma. You hired a child? The Girak ridiculed, grabbing the chair opposite Redfern and speaking between long, tired breaths. Have you lost your mind? And who are you to question my judgment? Redfern responded, already convinced that the adventurer was not the type needed for the quest. I prefer the title Chaos, which suits me well, and I say the only thing she's good for is a drunken night in bed.
It was my first meeting with the fool. He had just hired the girl Precedent for his quest. What nonsense. She wasn't up to the terrors of the old. I had learned Redfern was a strange case, and already he was proving how inept he really was.
This was Redfern's first verbal encounter with a Girak, and all the terrible things he had heard about this race already seemed true. The wizard was aware of the dark history of the Giraks, how they were accidentally created through the early misuse of Magicka during the Second Age of Man well over 2,000 years ago, and how they ultimately plunged the entire world into the Age of Damnation, a 1,000-year period of endless war and suffering. The Girak generation that survived the war had been banished to the frozen northern regions of the continent. But that was over a millennia ago, and now the race was slowly becoming tolerated within Sisla's society again. Still, Redfern had always avoided the species, and quickly tried to rid himself of the arrogant and distasteful humanoid before him. I trust you're not here to join my party. You shouldn't even be here in Josephine, Redfern warned, meaning every word.
Giraks defeated and not destroyed, rose to power through the Age of Damnation, banished by Sisla, but never forget. We'll see the utopian end, rightful rulers of America. The Giraks are all powerful.
I can go wherever I want, returned the Girak, quickly taking Ariana's seat as if it belonged to him. And why shouldn't I join your party? I'm a wizard. You need adventurers. I think our interests are mutual. I need loyal followers, something you're obviously not, and I have little need for another wizard. Another wizard? Chaos chuckled, surprising Redfern. You're a strange case, Redfern. Born to parents who kept you a mystery, raised by an abusive father, and finally running away to Chigoria, swearing revenge against this city? And now you call yourself a wizard? How do you know all that? Redfern hissed, embarrassed that Chaos seemed to know the truth about his childhood. Let's just say some rat told me. It doesn't matter, Girak, Redfern sneered. I don't like you, and you're certainly not invited to join my party.
What a fool! Is this the best Josephine can offer? If Redfern's a typical human, I don't know how they were able to defeat us. Still, I have my orders.
You're full of pride, Redfern. But you'll need more than that in Evil Root. You'll need strength, and cunning, and strong Magicka. You'll need me, and I'm going whether you like it or not. Redfern's eyes flared, and sudden anger consumed him, outraged that Chaos would dare to be so arrogant, and so the hero immediately tried to rid himself of the vagrant. But in his urgent need to dispel Chaos, Redfern didn't notice the closing of the Girak's eyes, his quick intake of air, and his sudden concentration. As he looked at Chaos with extreme anger and contempt, Redfern slowly began to trust what he saw within the eyes of the Girak, and felt a strange sensation that perhaps the humanoid wasn't as bad as he seemed. The perception grew stronger, and soon Redfern felt he had made a mistake, that Chaos would actually be a valuable member of the adventuring party. No, a vital ally.
And you can see I'm your friend. A friend to be trusted. No, a needed ally. I would serve you best, Redfern. You can't succeed in your quest without me.
The wizard then felt a sharp pain run through his head, but it was gone as quickly as it had come. Redfern blinked several times and shook his head, feeling as if he had dozed off for a moment, and then glanced around a bit before turning back to the Girak opposite him. On second thought, I think we might need another wizard, Redfern said almost incoherently, as if he truly didn't mean what he was saying. Meet us by the main gate, tomorrow at sunrise. Chaos grinned and turned to leave Redfern, surprised his spell had affected the wizard so easily. The Girak melted into the crowd, leaving Redfern alone to try and recollect his thoughts, unaware of the Magicka just used against him. Redfern then heard a strong and strangely familiar voice beside him. I want to join your party. The dazed wizard looked up, immediately recognizing the Denweir whose life he had saved back in the marshland a few days earlier. Surprised to see him again, Redfern stood in respect for the defender and offered the muscular hero the seat just vacated by Chaos. The Denweir moved slowly, still not trusting the young wizard, but managed to sit after several long moments of indecision. Redfern sat down and looked intently upon him, but the Denweir spoke first. First, let's get something straight, warned the defender, his look more serious than ever. I am Eswin, Sorcerer's Slayer, and I'll cut you to pieces if you show the slightest hint of evil or corruption. I see, responded Redfern, his voice soft and intimidated. So why do you want to join my party? Because of this.
Before Redfern, I had never met an honest and honorable wizard. And even though he had saved my life a few days before, I still didn't think I could trust him. Still, he did leave me in peace, and I was just as interested in his quest as he, though for entirely different reasons.
Eswin raised his right arm and showed Redfern his inner palm. There, burned into the muscular appendage of the Denweir, was a blackened image of a skull casting out lightning bolts, a horrid sight just by itself. Yet Redfern knew the true significance of the marking, and immediately felt a wave of pity and remorse for the Denweir. "You've been cursed," he whispered, appalled by the sight. "Pain must be unbearable for you. What happened?" "That's none of your business," snapped Eswin, not proud of the curse and certainly not about to tell his story to the wizard. "But for now I see us fighting for the same goal, so we might as well do so together." Eswin lowered his arm, placing it across the hilt of his trusty Sidian sword. Redfern closely observed the movement, and then responded with a hint of paranoia. "Fair enough, but tell me, if you are a slayer of sorcerers, then am I destined to die at your hand too?" Receiving no response, Redfern grew even more uncomfortable.
The curse was usually laid out by those wishing a terrible retribution on others who had crossed or betrayed them. No amount of Magicka could free it once it was set. The curse causes excruciating pain at all times, and it eventually kills or drives its victim mad with pain. Either way, Eswin was dying.
Eswin suddenly felt a slasher at his throat, the stone sword smaller than his Sidian sword and made for the weaker combatants of Mariga. Knowing that a quick movement would result in his equally quick demise, Eswin slowly turned to see the tall, rugged human at the other end of the blade, his look and demeanor warning the Denweir to behave himself. Neither Redfern nor Eswin recognized Throm or his cohort standing there, and the two looked at one another in disbelief before returning their eyes to the madman there. Throm ordered Eswin to stand, keeping his slasher securely pressed against the hero's throat. The Denweir was then backed away, and the estranged farmer lowered his weapon and turned to Redfern with the greatest hatred and animosity one could feel toward a fellow human being. "There you are, you murdering bastard! The blood of my family runs from your hands!" Everyone within the tavern became quiet and still, watching the altercation with great suspense. The surprise had turned to horror for Redfern, and he looked to Eswin for support. "You don't even deserve a proper execution," cried Throm as he moved to cleave Redfern's head in two. "Die, First Guard!" Frozen in terror, the wizard was unable to defend himself. Instead, Eswin reached out and grabbed Throm by the wrist, arresting the attack. The mad leader turned to Eswin again, even more outraged, and convinced he should have just killed the Denweir. "Damn you!" cried the evil man, hatred gushing forth like water from a geyser. "Get him!" The other 5 men, each armed with slashers of their own, rushed Eswin at the same time. The Denweir instinctively leaped away to avoid the initial assault, then spun around to attack. An expert in hand-to-hand combat, several well-placed kicks and punches quickly forced all of the poorly trained men to retreat, most of them bleeding if not badly injured. The valiant defender then drew his long obsidian blade, its honed blackness silently warning the vicious men of their impending deaths if they attacked again. Outraged beyond sanity, Throm cried out and leaped toward Redfern, again bringing his slasher down as if to split the young wizard in two. Whirling around and lunging forward, Eswin thrust his weapon toward the wizard and slammed it against the surrounding stone just inches above Redfern's head. Throm's blade crashed into Eswin's sword and was immediately halted, saving the wizard hero from the deadly blow. Eswin then sent his right elbow deep into Throm's stomach, causing the madman to buckle over in severe pain and let go of his slasher. Showing little mercy, Eswin grabbed Throm and punched him again, breaking his nose and sending the rogue crashing atop a nearby table. The defeated men pulled Throm away from the table and turned to face Eswin, but the Denweir had clearly demonstrated his superiority, and with a determined pointing toward the exit, the estranged men were soon on their way. The altercation over, Eswin turned back to Redfern and put his blade, the weapon saving a life this time instead of taking one. "Are you all right?" asked Eswin, recollecting how Redfern had asked him the very same question in the marsh a few days before. The wizard nodded feebly, still stunned by his close brush with death, and now gripping and re-gripping his wooden staff in nervous desperation. As the crowd in the tavern slowly went back to its business, Eswin approached Redfern and spoke. "You once prevented my death, and now I've prevented yours. We're even. So tell me, why did they want to kill you?" "Because they're all mad," screamed Redfern, angry yet embarrassed by the vicious assault. "I'm trying to help these people. Why won't they leave me alone?" Pushing past the noble defender, Redfern was soon out of the tavern and into the night, taking his frustrations with him. Eswin decided not to follow, instead left to scratch his head and wonder about his first wizard friend. Redfern ran for nearly a mile after leaving the tavern, as if Throm and his goons were still hunting him. Deep within the back streets of the city, the shaken hero dashed past dozens of older and even damaged buildings, most of them gray and bleak in the night, inanimate skeletons that appeared somewhat ghoulish. But the night was also fresh and alive, cool with the approaching air of autumn, and the brilliant sky above held a beauty that soon tamed Redfern's wild heart and brought his anger under control. His lungs straining for air and his heart pounding from the run, Redfern spotted a simple stone well and decided to stop and drink. Recognizing that the back streets of Josephine were not the safest place within the city, especially given the current circumstances, Redfern cautiously looked about, confident that even if he met anyone wishing to do his harm, his Majika would protect him.
"This is crazy! To be hunted and nearly destroyed! All because of some wild rumors! Damn you, Father! You still hurt me, even from beyond your grave in Mount Rebirth! I wonder what other lies about me are spreading throughout Josephine."
A gentle wind continued to evaporate the perspiration from his chilled body as Redfern grabbed the rope that stretched between the well and the groundwater below. The wizard glanced about a second time, then pulled on the rope and retrieved a small bucket of pristine water, splashing some of it over his face before drinking the rest. Redfern then sat down atop the well, looking up into the night sky for several long moments, before taking a deep breath and gazing out across the horizon before him. There, in the far distance, stood the thick vegetative wall that encircled the rest of the city, nearly invisible under the starry night sky. Redfern thought about the wall, a desperate attempt to keep the Benzars out of the city, and wondered for the first time who truly was responsible for the monstrous attacks. He recalled how Sandris, several years earlier during her reign of Josephine, had fabricated the first army of Benzars from the ruins within the Evilroot Forest, to use as horrid soldiers to harass and even assassinate those who opposed her radical reforms. But Sandris was dead now, burned alive the same night he was forced to leave with his father, her ashes long since scattered amongst the four winds, and her wickedness forever laid to rest. Of course, her Gurak first guard was never captured and brought to justice, but Redfern doubted that even the Gurak possessed the magical strength and utter hatred needed to lead the Benzar armies against the city.
From what I remember, Sandras really wasn't all that bad. But some of her reforms for Parappa directly violated the code of the land. And she believed that Sisla was no goddess, earning her the hatred of the Sislan church as well. Still, when she released the Benzars upon Josephine, I guess she deserved what she got.
An hour passed before the young hero realized how late it was and headed back to his stately hotel room, continuing to dwell upon the Benzar mystery. Stepping inside the splendid chamber, he had almost forgotten about Ellen as well, the stranger who had followed him to Josephine, a victim of her own foolish curiosity with technology. Redfern found Ellen standing in the doorway leading to the bedchamber beyond, a surprised if not delighted look upon her face. Still appearing as a misty spirit, Redfern smiled to her as he closed the door and headed for a bowl of fruit resting on a nearby table. "Ellen, I almost forgot you were here," Redfern began, not expecting his message to be understood by the alien woman. "I'm not sure what to do about you." "Perhaps I should go on your adventure," Ellen replied, knowing full well how her response would be received. Redfern looked toward the translucent woman with genuine surprise, then grinned and stepped toward her, hoping to learn more. "You understood me." Ellen nodded, so happy to possess the gift of communication once again. "Perfectly, and I would like to join you if that's okay." Redfern smiled but still appeared surprised, raising his hand to his chin as if the action helped him think better. "And who told you about my adventure?" "I did," came a voice from the shadows within the bedroom.
Please let me come along. There's nothing for me here in Josephine. Perhaps I'll find something along the way to return me home. And if not, it'll be a good way for me to learn about this new world.
Redfern looked past Ellen and spotted the aging wizard Vel stepping into the living room. Deep concern and anxiety etched across his swollen eyes. Redfern looked back at Ellen, realizing that the circle representative must have been the one who restored her ability to communicate, then turned for the bowl of fruit and picked out a smaller piece. "Member Vel, I am honored," Redfern began, not sure of exactly what to say. "What is it you need?" "There is a great injustice before us. A wicked lie that threatens the very success of your adventure, something we must address now." Surprised by the dire moodiness of the older wizard, Redfern lifted the fruit to his mouth and turned toward Ellen, who was just as puzzled. "This doesn't sound good. What is it?" "The fact you are not a reborn wizard." Redfern nearly choked on the first bite of fruit, spitting it out as he turned to face Vel. "What?" "Even I was fooled at first, apprentice. But you are not reborn. You are a charlatan." Unprepared for the attack, the young man quickly summoned his defenses in the attempt to prove his status to the elderly wizard. "That's not true. I am a survivor of Mount Rebirth, and my Majika is powerful. Why do you insult me like this?" Prepared for such a response, Vel simply turned his head and spoke to Ellen, although he kept his tired eyes upon the charlatan. "Ellen, go in the bedroom and wait there until we're done," commanded the wizard, his voice firm. Ellen looked at Redfern, also surprised and confused, and so she hesitated. "Or," continued Vel, "do you want your speech taken away from you again?"
I'm afraid he was. And his supposed rebirth within the Valley of Destiny was far from permanent. And I think he knew it all along. But Redfern wanted to be a wizard so much, he was prepared to lie about it. And he continued to lie.
Not willing to risk her recently restored ability to communicate in this strange world, Ellen obeyed the wizard and left the room, disappearing into the dark shadows of the bedchamber beyond. Redfern watched her leave, and then turned back toward the man he was beginning to hate. Why embarrass me like that, in front of Ellen? I did survive my rebirth. Why do you dishonor me so? You have brought dishonor upon yourself, charlatan, spat Vel, growing angrier by the moment. You claim to be reborn, but I know what truly happened atop Mount Rebirth. You are no wizard. Redfern opened his mouth to respond, but the circle member immediately closed his eyes, drew a deep breath, and raised both his hands, facing a relatively empty section of wall within the otherwise decorated chamber. Redfern recognized the beginnings of a spell and turned to carefully watch what was about to take place. A whitish glow materialized directly before the wall, appearing as if it were a tremendous spiral galaxy hovering several feet off the floor. Redfern watched in awe as Vel's Magicka continued to provide motion and substance to the brilliant glow, now several feet in diameter and slowly swirling. Soon an image appeared within the heart of the brightness, and dread quickly filled the young charlatan as he recognized the place Vel had magically displayed, the final stairway within the mystical crater of Mount Rebirth. Redfern now realized what Vel was about to show, and became so embarrassed that he turned away from the magical retelling, unable to watch as the two figures beyond climbed the glowing stairway, arriving at the top moments later. There, within the magical image, stood Redfern and his father looking down over the thick fog that lay 1,000 feet beneath the glowing stairway, the legendary Valley of Destiny. The spell begun, Vel ceased his concentration and looked at the magical image, about to condemn Redfern for his past failures.
Now, boy, no, Father, I can't. Of course you can. Now you must accept Emma. No, Father, not that either.
Your father Rex was corrupted by the fruit of the Nemesis plant, and brought you to Mount Rebirth to make a wizard out of you, so together you could serve the ultimates of Chigoria and help destroy the Inner Circle. But fear overwhelmed you, and you lacked the faith and courage in yourself to make the jump. Your father tried to force you, but you pushed him off instead and absorbed the Magicka which erupted from his body. Redfern watched as the disastrous event unfolded again through Vel's magical window, Rex falling to his demise, and Redfern exposed to the release of raw Magicka. The hapless hero then turned away again as his own image stepped back down the glowing stairway to flee the scene. You fooled yourself into thinking you were reborn, and so failed your chance to become a true Wizard of Miraga, Vel cried, quite condemning. Your fear and total lack of faith in yourself resulted in the death of your own father. You've all but exhausted the insignificant amount of Magicka absorbed atop Mount Rebirth, and yet you still boast about permanent abilities you do not possess. Young Redfern, you should be condemned for what you've done. Redfern had long since recognized the fading of Magicka from his soul, the power draining away like water through his hands, and in his heart he knew that Vel was correct. It was all an accident, the charlatan cried, embarrassed and frustrated by the magical sight before him. I didn't mean that to happen. But happen it did, and all because you didn't have the courage to attempt your rebirth. The old wizard was right, Redfern knew. The Magicka that once pulsed through his veins was nearly gone, and Redfern watched Vel's revelation near the wall fade away like his own dreams and ambitions. Yet the charlatan had tasted true Magicka, tasted honor and power and heroic recognition, and decided that no one, not even a member of the Inner Circle, was going to deprive him of the right and glory of rescuing the shard. Indeed, Redfern had suffered far too much to lose everything now, and was willing to do anything to keep his leadership role. "Member Vel, don't take this adventure from me, please," Redfern almost whispered, appealing to the old man's pity. "This is something I've wanted all my life, something I need. Don't take it from me."
It's all true. At first I believed to be reborn, but the Majika quickly slipped away. I still have a little left, but I can't get it back. Not until I'm truly reborn. I guess I should give up. I am no wizard.
"I don't have that power," Vel returned, the comment greatly surprising the charlatan. "If the inner circle knew I sanctioned your adventure in the first place, they would destroy me. Besides, if the city were to learn the truth about you now, it would crush them. No, you must relinquish control of the adventure on your own." "But this is my adventure," Redfern returned, not truly listening to what Vel had to say. "I've earned the right, and I deserve the right. Only I can bring back the Shard of Life, and I will do it." "If you were a true wizard, perhaps," Vel retaliated, appalled by Redfern's apparent ego. "But without your rebirth, all you'll do is be destroyed, along with the rest of your adventuring party. You can't let that happen."
So I wasn't a genuine wizard. I still had some power. More importantly, everyone believed in me. I believed in me. I truly believed down to the core of my being that I was destined to lead this adventure, that only I could return the shard to its rightful place. And woe to anyone who would dare stop me.
Unable to respond, but just as determined to lead the adventure, Redfern turned away for several long moments. Recognizing that the young hero had no intention of calling off the quest, Vel decided on another tactic and slowly approached the charlatan, his demeanor less threatening and his words somewhat softer. "Prentice Redfern, listen. You are truly a good person, I can sense it. Someday you could be a mighty wizard indeed, especially now that you've had a taste of true Majika. But for now you simply lack the faith, courage, and wisdom you need to fulfill your own potential. I can't order you to step aside, so please give the leadership role to someone more deserving. Do this for me." Vel was now reaching Redfern, for the young man did indeed feel doubt and indecision in his heart. Still, Redfern was also convinced the opportunity to lead the quest of the Shard was one he would never have again, and remained determined to see it through regardless of the ultimate cost. "Lord Robert has given the adventure to me, and I will succeed," Redfern said finally, attempting to end the conversation. "I'm sorry you doubt my ability, but I will destroy the Benzars, find the Shard, and bring it back to Josephine. You just watch me." Vel stared at Redfern for several long moments, recognizing that the charlatan was beyond reason. The elderly wizard then nodded and stepped to the door, about to leave the young man behind. Ellen poked her head through the bedchamber doorway, unseen by the two men. "You do possess the potential of rebirth, and though you don't realize it, I sense that you may even be a truistic, destined to one day sit on the inner circle," said the wizard as he reached the door and opened it. "But your proud stubbornness will destroy you long before you have the chance. You'll have to learn it all on your own, apprentice, so stay alive long enough until you're ready." Vel smiled faintly, expecting at least some kind of response from Redfern. None came, however, so Vel stepped through the door in his disappointment and quietly closed the gate, his sad footsteps quickly lost in the silence beyond.
There wasn't much else I could say. He wasn't going to change his mind, despite the fact that he wasn't reborn, and I knew it. And despite the unholy terror of Evil Root, and the tremendous magical strength of the Angel of Death, the young apprentice wasn't going to reconsider. His convictions were absolute.
Don't worry, my friend. Your secret's safe with me, Ellen assured Redfern, stepping to his side and making him feel a bit better. The false wizard shook his head in confusion and mistrust, an opportunity the ghostly woman immediately grasped. So I'll make you a deal. We can help each other. First, I think we have a lot to discuss, Ellen boldly stated, desperately needing to learn more about the strange universe she found herself within. Redfern turned toward the bizarre female, a bit surprised by her proposition, but then remembering that she was a stranger in a strange land and deserved some introductory answers. So the charlatan smiled, ready to devote the next several hours to her. Yes, Ellen, what would you like to know?
Questions. I have many questions. Where am I? What is this place you call Meriga? What is Magica? Is it some physical power? Why do you hate technology so much? Why won't the Inner Circle help you?